getting us back to levels that we saw prior to the pandemic era surge in violent crime. So that obviously is a good thing. With regard to a mid-year update from the National Council on Criminal Justice, they reported 9 out of the 13 offenses that they track are lower in the first half of this year than the first half of last year. Homicides are actually at near historic lows. This has not been seen since the beginning of the 1900s. That being said, we obviously have some things that we must be unfortunately concerned about. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the uptick in the activity with regard to drug offenses. We saw this last year with regard to our Bureau of Narcotics in the Attorney General's office, where we removed over 56.5 million doses of fentanyl from the streets in Pennsylvania. That was just in 1 year alone. That was last year. That amount of fentanyl is staggering. It's enough to kill 4 times the population of Pennsylvania, and obviously that's unbelievably dangerous. It's nice that we can point to stats that show that certain crime is down, but it is absolutely critical that we don't just rely on stats and remember that each crime impacts the victim. And especially when we talk about that much fentanyl and different drugs that we're seeing, that's unbelievably dangerous. And I'm sure we will probably go more into that. It's also important to know that in the Attorney General's office, we work all over the state with regard to our gun violence task force, in particular in Philadelphia and in Allegheny County areas, and up here in the Northeast now. And we have seen a continued increase again with regard to drug activity. Last week in Western Pennsylvania, we had an announcement in Johnstown where we announced that we arrested 65 individuals, and they were all dealing drugs in the Johnstown area. Those individuals not only lived in that area, but some were from Philadelphia that moved there, and so we continue to see organized crime move to the places where they think they can get away with it and sell the most drugs and make the most money. I want to touch on organized retail theft very quickly. I want to thank you, Senator Arnold, for your leadership with regard to organized retail theft. That is, when you first hear about organized retail theft, you kind of wonder exactly what that is. But there's 2 points I want to make. I know many of you have probably seen over the years the videos from the smash and grabs that you see. We saw a lot of them in urban areas like Philadelphia, where tons of people would run in and they would break into a store. It's important to recognize that those incidents don't just happen in a vacuum, that most of the time they're coordinated by larger criminal enterprises. We've seen organized retail investigations lead to other places such as human trafficking investigations, drug investigations, and many, many other things. And so thank you for your leadership with regard to that. I think it's important. I'm going to highlight, and I don't want to throw out too many stats this morning, but I will say that in our first full year, we topped over 100 investigations in 52 different counties. And that showcases that this isn't just a big city issue. This is all throughout Pennsylvania. I am going to touch on human trafficking as well. This is very important since the human trafficking section started 2 years ago. We've seen a 125% increase in our active cases since the formation of that section. Human trafficking is unbelievably hard to track the data on, and one of the main reasons for that is because many victims don't even report that they were trafficked. And so right now we have over 79 active investigations with regard to human trafficking in 34 different counties all throughout Pennsylvania. This is so important, especially when we look at the issues that will be facing law enforcement and the legislature in the years to come with regard to technology, the wonderful, amazing things that come with technology, and all the amazing medical advances and things that come with it. But at the same time, as we know, technology can also be a tool for people that are using it the wrong way. And we see that with regards to child predator situations where people utilize all kinds of different technology and social media to get to children and to groom them. And we see it with human trafficking as well. Oftentimes that's exactly where it starts, is maybe an or some social media site where they meet someone, and then unfortunately can lead to someone being trafficked. So thank you to everyone here for your leadership with regard to human trafficking and giving us the tools we need to continue to fight. I want to talk briefly as well about senior scams and about protecting seniors. As everyone here knows, we have one of the highest numbers of senior citizens in the entire country here in Pennsylvania. As a result of that, we are clearly a target. I mean, there are small countries out there whose gross domestic product probably comes from, the majority of it comes from stealing from senior citizens in the United States of America. I'm watching this play out sort of in real time. I have aging parents that are in their early 80s and seeing the level of just the increase in technology, the sophistication of the scams. It's something that is really scary, and God willing, we'll all be there someday. I think we need to really do what we can to increase being able to target these bad guys, which is why I'm proud that in our office we recently created the elder exploitation section, which is dedicated to investigating and prosecuting cases where individuals that actually know, they're typically people that know the senior steal money from them. Those are individuals that take advantage of power of attorney situations and all kinds of others. And so we're really proud that that unit is actually already overwhelmed with cases. But that's what we're here for, and we're proud of doing that work. I would like to say the legislature should seriously consider addressing the Older Adult Protective Services Act, OPSA. There's Senate Bill 738 that would help stop fraud before it happens by empowering financial institutions to put holds on transactions that they believe to be fraudulent. That pause is absolutely critical to allowing the potential victim to realize that they are being defrauded of their money. And this is so important because in most instances, once that money is gone, it is gone. And these are individuals that, I have seen unbelievably tragic cases, even back to when I was, as a district attorney, I watched, and I'm sure my colleagues up here can tell you the exact same thing, where well-meaning people they had no clue they were being scammed. They literally give away all the money that they have left in their bank account, and that money rarely ever is returned to them. And also, and I know there's going to be a lot of back and forth here, is my assumption, and so I would be remiss if I didn't address the issue of felony murder before we start having dialogue. I want to thank everyone in this room for standing up for victims and supporting different solutions for felony murder. I want to be very clear that the SB 1400 would provide appropriate sentencing structure for felony murder. And I want to remind people that right now, I believe the only crime that exists on our books that does not have a sentencing structure by statute is the crime of felony murder, which is second-degree murder. And for those that are here listening, I'd like to always remind people exactly what that is. And I saw my colleagues here do that very effectively over the last month or so. But these felony murder is when someone kills someone while they are already committing some of the most serious crimes that we have on our books. So you're already committing one of the most serious violent crimes that are out there, and that's robbery, burglary, rape, kidnapping, arson. And so you're committing something that already carries one of the heaviest sentences, and while you're doing that, you kill the person. That's second-degree murder. And so I would like to go back and say that even though time has ran out with regard to the pause put in place by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, obviously we still support SB 1400. It provided the different options that should be there so that we can hold these individuals accountable. And we're really at a place that is just unacceptable without having statutory standards in place. And so with that being said, and I don't want to blow out all my time here, but I would like to remind everyone about these sections that we have in our criminal law division that are working very hard every single day. And so that would be our money laundering section, our child predator section. We have a criminal prosecution section. We handle cases that are referred to the Office of In some cases, those are conflicts. In other cases, those are resource referrals. And so we are always happy, willing, and able, and excited to handle those cases when they come to us. I just mentioned our elder exploitation section. We have an environmental crimes section, financial crimes, gun violence, Medicaid fraud, and last year we were #1 in the country for the amount of Medicaid fraud convictions. Obviously, it's not good that we have that much Medicaid fraud that requires that many convictions, but I'm very proud of the work that our office does to ensure that we do get convictions with regards to Medicaid fraud. We talked about organized retail theft, we have an organized crime section, public corruption. We have a newly formed cold case section that's looking into cold case homicides around the state as well. And lastly, with regard to artificial intelligence and technology, we recently created a technology and privacy protection unit as well. It's located with our Bureau of Consumer Protection. So, with that being said, it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you for taking the time to highlight all these issues, and I look forward to hearing my colleagues. So thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General Sunday. I do want to recognize we have been joined by Representative Joel Hadley, elected in the 22nd District, representing Carbon County, as well as Representative Greg Pugh, in the 20th District.
Next up, Sam Sanguadilci. Holding them close. If not, you can call me Argyle.
You nailed it.
District Attorney right here from Stark County. Sam, thank you for joining.
I would like to thank everyone for welcoming me. Before I inquire, thank you. So I'd like to thank Attorney General Dave Sunday for getting my candor up about some of the things he talked about. I often wake up in the morning and I wonder what planet we live on, right? The Supreme Court just overturned felony murder, said it's cruel and unusual to put people in jail for second-degree murder, life without parole. Second-degree murder, also known as felony murder, is not just being convicted of any old felony, right? It's not a $2,000 theft. You stole a purse out of a grocery cart and had $3,000. It's 6 specific individual crimes. The Commonwealth, being the district attorney or the attorney general working the case, has to prove, along with the police officers, beyond a reasonable doubt, that you have agreed with someone else that you will rape someone, you will rob someone, you will burglarize someone, you will kidnap someone. That is to say, you have agreed that you will be the getaway driver when someone plucks your child out of the playground or out of the playpen. And because you're the getaway driver and someone dies, you go to jail for life without parole. Aren't those crimes heinous enough? And now, as the Attorney General so eloquently stated, we're in a situation where we don't have guidelines on what the penalty should be. So, yes, we have at least a dozen people in Lucerne County, and we have recently had a press conference, and I highlighted them. The District Attorneys Association of Pennsylvania went through these cases, and out of the 500 cases they reviewed, they found one getaway driver. So now all of these people are going to appeal their sentences. We're going to spend hundreds of man and women hours trying to keep them in jail because people decided that agreeing to kidnap or rape or rob or burglarize someone doesn't warrant life without parole. I'd like to thank the panel for putting us together here so that we can make the public aware of some of the things that we wake up every day and worry about if we even sleep at all. I know that this panel here, thankfully, for the people of Luzerne County, because I can only speak for my own district, have fought to see that the work, that the hundreds, thousands of hours that police and prosecutors have done to convict second-degree murderers does not go unnoticed. But not only that, we had the families of the victims there. Imagine being the prosecutor that sits down with the victim's family, and I know that this person killed your loved one, and they will never get out of jail. And then wake up 12 years later and find out, you know what, they might get out of jail. That's a hard conversation to have, and I know that Senator Baker has gotten those calls, I know that I've gotten those calls. You told me that this person would be in jail forever, now what happens? And my answer is I have no idea. We're still waiting. So I would like to thank the senators and representatives here for their support. Senate Bill 1400 answered. Maybe it's not perfect, but we are continuing to work, and I'd like to encourage the Democrats and Republicans and independents alike to goes back to the days of the 1-800 commercials, the infomercials, act down, right? They create a sense of urgency. Some emergency must happen, we must act now. Gift cards are for gifts, they are not for paying bills. Please, if you have any questions at all, make the call. I've been called a number of times by people that I thought, they are intelligent, but the scam, that's an art of the scam, right? People that are politically astute, that are socially aware. My son-in-law is in jail. He needs me to get this money to him right now. Do me a favor, call your son-in-law. No, they said he doesn't have his phone. Just call him. And what ends up happening is that it's a scam, of course. The Attorney General touched on human trafficking. It's something that even the police and prosecutors are not aware of how much is going on. We're getting better at it, but we're way behind times. The biggest hurdle in human trafficking cases, which are happening every single day in Luzerne County, I wish I could tell you differently, is that the victims sometimes don't even know they're victims. They have been raised in a situation of human trafficking. They will not cooperate with police very often. I know that ICE and immigration is a very hot topic, but very often they are in a foreign country without documentation and can't speak the language. Can you imagine a more terrifying situation than that? You are being forced to commit, to perform sexual acts in a country where you can't even speak to the police to get out. A topic that I know is coming up is also on hold by the Supreme Court and before our legislature is medical marijuana. I can't be one of the district attorneys that can just accept that recreational marijuana is coming to our state. For at least 10 years before I was in a supervisory position with the district attorney's office, I was prosecuting cases of heroin. Heroin was the hot topic at the time. Every one of the defendants with whom I spoke, with their attorneys, I asked them, how did you get here? These are people that are committing crimes in exchange for just that very next high. And all of them, 100% of them, told me that they started with marijuana. Whenever I talk to people that like to smoke marijuana, that have medical marijuana or otherwise, they tell me, don't tell me that person didn't start with Bud Light. I can't tell you that. I can only tell you that when I asked, their answer was marijuana. That's what they associated with starting. So, at the very least, I hope that we resist the urge to get this influx of tax money that I know will be the savior of Pennsylvania, just like gambling was. All of our property taxes have since been abolished, so we're all in very good shape because of that. And lastly, I know the District Attorneys Association, I've aligned with them to regulate skill games. I know that there was an argument for a long time that they weren't slot machines. But I want you to consider also the fact that in this very city, we had a murder that revolved around the skill games, right? The fact that they have put millions of dollars to oppose our legislative candidates in order to keep their tax rate at 0, or else 3% of the income tax, while the casino next door is paying 55%. It's very difficult for me to rise up and say that we have a moral objection to gambling while we have a giant casino that's paying 55% tax. But the reality is that if you pay your fair share, maybe we can do what we need to do to
Tate, veteran district attorney in Schuylkill County and vice president of the Pennsylvania DA's Association. Mike?
Good morning, Senator Argo, Chair of the Senate Majority Policy Committee, Representative Dave Rowe, Chair of the House Republican Policy Committee, and the other senators and representatives here. Good morning, and thank you for allowing us to participate. Representative Wacho, thank you for hosting this event, which I think you can tell from the remarks from General Sunday and DA Sangalucci that we have some very recurring themes here that are important to the District Attorney's Office. And I'm here on behalf of the Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association as the current vice president of that association. I've served as district attorney in Schuylkill County since 2018. Prior to that, I was an assistant district attorney since 1992. I served from 1992 until the end of 2013. In 2014, I joined the public defender's office for a brief period of time, and I stayed there for 4 years prior to running for district attorney. I think that gave me a really unique perspective on the issues that are important to the district attorney's office in fighting crime and keeping our community safe. As I said, the recurring themes here, you'll hear a lot of what I'm saying has already been said, because these issues are issues that are important to us, and we need your assistance to keep our community safe. One of the most rewarding and often most challenging responsibilities that we face as district attorneys is dealing with victims of crime. Victims of crimes have their lives disrupted through no fault of their own. It's just because they are victims. And we in all of our offices have victims advocates offices within our office. And those victim advocates work daily with all victims, whether it be the most heinous crime of rape or just a simple theft that occurs. But whatever that crime is, it affects those victims. Now, unfortunately, at the federal level, some of our funding for VOCA, Victims of Crime Act, is being cut. There's no other way to put it. We know that the state works hard to keep the funding going for victims in Pennsylvania, and we appreciate your effort in that regard. So we would ask that you continue to keep victims in mind when you are doing the budget. And you are setting forth priorities. Victims are always a priority for everyone in our office. The other issue that we have that is very important to the district attorney's office is funding for district attorneys and our staff. For whatever reason, individuals coming out of law school now are less interested in serving the public. And I'm not really sure why that is. But it's happening. Right now, the District Attorneys Association has put forth a major effort regarding retention of district attorneys that we have and recruitment as well. Because we think that recruitment and retention is the only way that we can get people to serve the public and keep our community safe. So that is a very important issue for us. We know that the Senate Resolution 94 and the final report of the Joint State Government Commission study was authorized, and that is something that was authorized so that we can examine what the challenges are that our offices face regarding recruitment and retention. We thank you for that study. We ask that you consider everything that's in that study very thoroughly, and we ask that you continue to work in that regard to make sure that district attorneys' offices have the appropriate staff to keep our community safe. One of my roles as the vice president of the District Attorneys Association is I'm a member of PCCD's Indigent Defense Advisory Committee, and I see firsthand how those public defense officers are funded. There was just a major influx of cash within the public attorney's offices. All we're asking for is equal funding for our offices, so that we can keep people in our offices that are there, we can keep them happy, monetarily, benefits-wise, whatever it may be, and that we have the ability to go out and recruit people to serve the public. That's all we do. That's all we're asking. I know it was touched on a little earlier about technological advances that are happening. We solve a lot of crimes in our offices. Municipal police officers that are here will tell you that they solve a lot of crimes now with ring cameras. And we talked about the retail theft rings. The technology that we have in the stores throughout the Commonwealth, Walmart, wherever it may be, are highly technical. So all of that information that we gather, that's called discovery. And we have to provide that information to defense counsel. We have to review it. Someone in our office has to review it. Someone has to provide it. That takes time and money. All of these technological advances are great, and they help us solve crimes. But again, we need money so that we can have technology in the courtroom to present it to a judge and a jury in order to convict an individual that's committed a crime. And again, ultimately, keep our community safe. One of the other, speaking of technological advances, you have to also talk about artificial intelligence, AI. AI right now, throughout the Commonwealth, throughout the nation, it allows individuals to manipulate sensitive material for ill gains or ill purposes. This AI has the ability to manipulate or superimpose a person's face or body or alter an image that often depicts intimate, nude, or simulated sexual scenarios, and they disseminate then that information to the general public or to other friends with a specific intent to harass, embarrass, intimidate, or extort. This is particularly true with minors, and minors are very, very vulnerable to this exploitative practice, and that leads to emotional and profound trauma and distress. So we ask that the legislature continues to fund our efforts in combating and keeping pace with artificial intelligence. Increasingly, and I know this for a fact in School County, the number of individuals suffering with mental health issues leads to a great deal of crime. I think it's very important that we have the resources we need and the health specialists that we need to combat the solutions for mental health crisis in our community. Our offices, the district attorney's offices, we support the versionary program. These programs provide a second chance for offenders to take accountability and demonstrate meaningful, positive change so that they are not cycled through the system continually. This applies to juveniles as well. In Schuylkill County, I led efforts to establish a wellness court, which was recently created in Schuylkill County. And our wellness court has a veterans track too, which is very important because we like to make sure that the veterans that have served our country with dignity and respect are treated the same way when they have been and are given the opportunity to change their lives. one of the things that I think I would be remiss if I did not mention, is Commonwealth v. Lee, which changed the sentencing structure for felony murder in Pennsylvania. I don't think that I could say it any better than my two colleagues with me. It's very disturbing that right now we do not have a sentencing structure for someone that commits murder in the course of committing a violent, serious crime. That 6 crimes are specifically enumerated. It's hard to fathom that right now our courts and our offices are going to be inundated with over 1,100 cases that are going to come back before our courts for resentencing. And we don't have a structure for it. We ask that you continue to work hard. We know 120 days has passed. We ask that you continue to work hard to reach a resolution. And we're asking that what you get to is a structure which allows for accountability, punishment, but also, very importantly, an avenue that person will still have the possibility of serving life in prison. That's very important. I think the theme of my remarks here are that we need the right tools to promote public safety, prevent violence, protect and support victims of all ages, and keep illegal drugs off the streets and away from our kids. More specifically, we would also like to see regulation for hemp products with high THC levels being sold under the guise of the legal Farm Bill compliant substances and marketed to minors. We're asking for amendments to the Older Adult Protective Services Act to establish mandated reporting requirements for elder abuse and neglect, strengthen protections against financial exploitation and scams targeting older adults, and create mechanisms to ensure justice for victims who have been built out of their lives of savings. We're asking for continued funding for child advocacy centers that are crucial for investigating child abuse in a multidisciplinary way that minimizes the trauma of children and provides treatment services for the child and their family. We're also asking that you outlaw squatting, which is the intentional act of making a false 911 call to provoke a police response. As witnessed in the recent Villanova University swatting incident, alleging an armed gunman was on campus, these hoaxes put people's lives at risk and waste valuable public safety resources. PDAA hopes that identifying these issues is helpful, and we welcome continued discussions with lawmakers as we work to develop effective, practical solutions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Senator Baker has led the fight on our side of the Capitol on trying to resolve this terrible issue based on the Supreme Court case. And so let me ask her to give me about 5 to 10 minutes left for questions and answers, and then I'll turn to Dave here for questions from the representatives. Senator Baker.
Thank you, Senator Argo. You eloquently spoke about Commonwealth versus Lee, and I think as one of the prime sponsors of Senate Bill 1500, along with my colleague, Senator Wayne Langerville, we believe we had a very reasonable approach to addressing felony murder. 35 years to life. It set a mandatory minimum that we believed was appropriate based on the culpability of the individuals in the crime. It's very frustrating that the day before the 120 days happened, the House took up the bill, gutted it, and returned a bill to us that not only expanded medical parole that has not been vetted properly in the Senate. There's limited capacity in the community to handle these kinds of criminals, but the idea that a first-degree murderer could be getting out of jail with medical parole based on the bill that the House sent back to the Senate. We passed it twice in a bipartisan manner, and I think it's important for people to understand we need to come to a resolution that includes, to your point, DA and pay accountability and the accountability for the potential of life. The way it was structured, the idea that someone can kill a law enforcement officer and not have life is something that I can't support. I'm hopeful that we will continue the negotiations, but it's difficult when you've got people whose priorities are no mandatory minimums for any crime. I understand that we want to keep nonviolent first-time offenders, give people second chances, but there needs to be accountability for these crimes. And I would just ask if you could help us underscore that and continue. I get phone calls every day from victims, not just here in Luzerne County, but throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, who are concerned about the opening of these cases. Your cases were not found to be inappropriate. Your cases were not thrown out because you didn't prosecute them properly. I just want to thank you and the DA's Association and Attorney General Sunday for stepping forward to put a spotlight on what this is and why we need to have a mandatory minimum. I just ask for your help as we continue to fight that good fight, because you now face the potential of people being charged with second-degree felony murder. And what do you base your recommendations to the judge? We will have complete lack of uniformity across the Commonwealth. If you could speak to that. Do you have any cases that you're concerned with?
I'm happy to chime in on a case right now where a request was made to plead second-degree murder. And so what do I do with that, right? How do you tell, as much responsibility as I have to the public and to the police, I think people often overlook the fact that our responsibility is also to the defendant, right? If you have a competent defense counsel, or no defense counsel, they represent themselves, you still have an obligation to protect their rights. I can't properly advise a defendant what the consequence might be. Second, not only is better than first, but is it? We don't even know. So, we continue to fight that fight, and I appreciate the fact that you're saying, again, I'm often wake up saying, like, what? And that's the way I live on it. People that have agreed to commit a rape, now it's the victim again, and that they had to, people don't think about this when you read in the paper someone has pled guilty or been convicted. The police put in an affidavit of probable cause what they believe to be enough evidence to bring to a judge, right? And the judge looks at it and decides that he's going to issue an arrest warrant, so we take this person free. And then they get a preliminary hearing where they're represented by counsel, and they get to challenge the evidence. And then they get a habeas corpus hearing where a county judge reviews the evidence and decides we have enough evidence. And then they get suppression motions where they try to suppress evidence that the police found. And then we have a jury not before police, not in front of the judge, but a jury of 12 of the defendant's peers that decide the Commonwealth has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that this person has agreed, even if you're just a getaway driver, which was not the case in Lee, by the way, but even if you're just a getaway, you have agreed with someone, while I go rape this girl, while I go pluck this child out of a playground or a playpen, will you be my getaway driver? Yes, I will. I'll be right here while you go through that. That the penalty of life is too severe, it's cruel and unusual. And so these victims had to watch that. The loss of a loved one, you wait for the police to make an arrest. You read the stories, and now you read social media with the rumors and false information. And then you live through the conviction, and then you live through the appeal to the Superior Court, the appeal to the Supreme Court, the appeal to the Third Circuit, the appeal to the United States Supreme Court. Then we start post-conviction relief, right? My lawyer was incompetent, so we start all of that all over again, and live through that 12, 13, 15, 20 years later. Now they see that it's cruel and unusual punishment, and they call an honest. What happened 10 years, if you have an upset stomach, you might be on medical release and out of prison after having killed someone. So you can absolutely, I know the 3 prosecutors sitting here, you can absolutely count on us to stand behind you. But our worry, like your worry, Paul, is I know that you're not doing this job because you want to sit up here and be on the front page of the paper. You want to do this job because you want to do something for the people of Pennsylvania. Our job is to find a way to get something done, not find a way to not get something done. And you can count on us to stand behind you, whatever you need from us, so that we have an answer for these victims. Well, absolutely, I absolutely would love to pick up that phone. Here's the answer. We're gonna have another hearing. And I am absolutely not worried about going before a judge of the Court of Common Pleas in Missouri County and proving once again that these people did what we said they did, that a jury found that they did, and they deserve to be held.
If I may, Senator Baker, I want to make a couple comments. The first one is, I want to thank you for being such a credible messenger on this issue. And what I mean by that is this. And again, you know, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I think I probably can in this point. And that is that, you know, our criminal justice system is not a one-size-fits-all criminal justice system. You know, when cases hit our desks, and I'm going to say R from the, as if I was still VA, hit our desks, it's a lagging indicator of so many societal problems. So much happened before a case gets to us. It could be everything from someone's abused throughout the course of their life. There could be substance abuse issues, mental health issues, all kinds of things happen before it hits us. And so when it hits us, we have to ensure there's accountability. I want to thank you. You've worked very hard over the course, and this is really important, of your career to identify the time for redemption, the time for getting people treatment, the time for making sure that we can address the issues prior to it getting to this point. And so for people watching this, they need to understand that this isn't a situation where as a body, collectively here, and Senator, you yourself are saying, like, everyone's got to go to jail forever, that's what we're doing. That is absolutely not remotely what this is about. Everything from your work with an early termination of probation initiative, things of that nature, so you've been a voice for reasonableness in the system and empathy with helping people. That being said, I thank all of you for allowing the district attorneys and the prosecutors to have a voice in this. This is so unbelievably important. And this is a point that is not often made. And that is that in the entire criminal justice system, there's only one group of lawyers willing to all of the law that doesn't have a client. And that are prosecutors. The criminal defense lawyers, and I love them dearly, my colleagues, they have one duty, and that is to zealously advocate for the best interest of one person, and that's their client. And the goal as a lawyer for that one person that you're the defense attorney for is to get them out of jail and have the best possible outcome for them. Whereas district attorneys and prosecutors don't have a client. Their ethical duty is to ensuring that the right thing happens. It's to ensuring that the system functions properly. It's to make sure, as District Attorney Samuel Dolce mentioned, it's to ensure that constitutional rights and protections are afforded to the defendants. And so, with that being said, the place through which I know my colleagues are viewing this dilemma is through that of the system in its entirety, and in particular through ensuring that victims have voices, because that is part of our duty as well to the Victims' Bill of Rights. And so, with that being said, I think that this whole discussion can never be sort of, pushed into the simple place of jail or not jail. It's ensuring that there's a right outcome based on these horrific crimes that are occurring. And so I would be remiss if I didn't thank you for being that voice, and I have no doubt you will continue to be that voice through this, and we will all continue to be with you in making sure that the community understands exactly what's happening here.
Just very, very briefly, because I know we're pressed for time here a little bit. The Supreme Court case in Lee asked that there be an assessment of culpability. That's what Senate Bill 1400 does. It sets a minimum. To be quite honest with you, I think think that's a huge concession that was made to rectify what Lee is asking us to do. That concession, I don't believe was taken into consideration in House Bill 1402. It didn't take into consideration the concessions that the Senate has made by setting the floor of 35 years. You can still get to a life sentence by an assessment of culpability. And that is what the district attorney's offices are looking for. We're looking for uniformity, and we're looking for culpability. And that's what Senate Bill 1400 does. So thank you very much for your efforts in that.
All right, we have three representatives with questions. Just to be respectful of time, I would ask obviously members and testifiers to keep it short and sweet, so we try to get through the whole list. Starting off with Representative Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. It blows my mind that we're even discussing this. I was excited a few short weeks ago to be called back to Harrisburg to vote to protect victims. That did not happen. Hours were spent in debate, and unfortunately, Senate Bill 1400 didn't come up, and that's unfortunate. We have a bill that we voted on that does not protect victims. Just wanted to touch on that. Attorney General, I know you said you want to stay away from stats, right? But there's a few things I want to bring up there. Pennsylvania homicide, 683 in 2024, down 23%. Pennsylvania firearm assault, 5,317 in 2024, down 15%. And Pennsylvania overdose, 3,341 deaths in 2024, down 29.2%. That's based off leadership from your office and the two gentlemen's, and one to your left, one to your right. So thank you. Luzerne County District Attorney spoke briefly about marijuana. When somebody comes in, they first offend, you ask what your drug of choice was. Start off and say it was marijuana, correct? I think that needs to really resonate with people when they go before the court the first time. It's marijuana, and then potentially leads into other harsher drugs. I'm going to yield the rest of my time, Chairman. Thank you very much for allowing me.
Thank you very much, Representative Watson. Representative Beasley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you testifiers for your information. I've sat on a subcommittee of the health that was in opposition to legalization of cannabis for the past 4 or 5 years. And we've held hearings that expose the dangers and the troubles that cannabis has for both children and adults. I want to congratulate General Sunday for the recent letter you're talking about regulating hemp again in the state. What happened? The Farm Bill allowed hemp to come in, and of course, it's an interesting product that has uses, but people have found a way to use heat and add chemicals and turn it into synthetic THC, which is then sold in vape shops and gas stations and various places where children are allowed to buy this. Now, they did studies and they found that 40% of what's in a vape shop is not anything but clippings from the front yard. And then there is 25%, which is synthetic THC, which has chemicals and problems, and 15% is real marijuana, which nobody's checking. And it's just going to continue. So I think it's very important for us to protect our community by doing that. And I appreciate your looking toward that. Do you think that is going to pick up traction? How can we help?
Well, my understanding is, I believe that the letter you're referring to, I believe the Senate voted on that, and it was approved. Basically, it was not what I was asking for, and so that amendment was now extended basically for another month. And so we're going to wait, and the hope for the individuals that are against closing the Farm Bill loophole, their hope is that in this next month,
appreciate it. And again, Representative Quattro, when we talked about going in and voting on this bill, it's awful to be in the minority because we don't have a chance to get bills that work. And I just don't understand the other side, that we can have an eating disorder, and if I go to eat my meal in prison and I throw up, I've got bulimia, you let me out of a murder conviction. That's just wrong. And again, it's awful what we're going through, but that's the side we're trying to play those cards very difficult. Thank you.
Representative Kane.
Hi, yes, thank you, Chairman, for hosting this today and Representative Walter for bringing it to us. I think a lot of my colleagues have hit on a lot of stuff that I have. Senator Baker actually got my question right off the bat there. So, but I do want to be down the road, we're going to go down the marijuana road right now. THC is a real problem. And having a nephew who started with marijuana at the age of 12 and then ending up putting the heroin needle in his arm at 33 to take into his life is a real problem. So it did start with marijuana and it will not ever be able to fix me otherwise. He advances through the drugs. But we also have something else that's coming up is the Cradle Zone Wage, which is just scheduled by the federal government, which is actually a version of the Cradle process inside of my district. So I see that starting, and I've had the opportunity to speak to police chiefs and to addicts of Cradle. And I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but it's actually harder, they're telling me to come off of it, coming off of heroin. So I'm wondering what your questions are as far as that goes with Cradle. Are you seeing anything of that at the center wages?
If you're asking what my question is, why are we so slow? Right? The federal government can't agree with the sky. Has gotten this done, and in Pennsylvania, this along with the block switch legislation, right? We can't seem to get both sides to agree to things. Do we really want to turn from a regular handgun to a machine gun, the tiny plastic clip you can print from the 3D printer? So, and to be clear, both things are federally illegal, but that renders all of us, basically impotent with that, right? We can't prosecute them. We have to rely on the federal government that, we probably do 500 gun cases a year. We probably do 2,000 drug cases a year. If you think the middle district of Pennsylvania is anywhere close to that, they are. What I'd like to see, you're right, Cradle is as bad or worse than marijuana. And to be clear, I'm not saying that everybody that's tried marijuana has become a heroin addict, certainly not. But in the same way that, we're only learning about addiction now, right? In fact, we're not even supposed to call it addiction, it's substance use disorder. But in the same way that you're born blue eyes, you can be born naturally in a way that you are more likely to be addicted than anybody else. You've tried that life of being an alcoholic, you tried marijuana, you're going to graduate to heroin, you try gambling, you're going to lose your house. We need from the legislature the tools to fight that, right? By saying medical marijuana, recreational marijuana basically sells children in located trials. Is it? Is that what we think? Is that the doctors have agreed upon? They can't even agree that the COVID vaccine is safe, right? So we need the tools, number one, to arrest, because it's not people trying marijuana, right? It's people making thousands, if not millions of dollars and selling it. Give us the tools to fight that, and also the tools to investigate and learn. I've seen a number of commissions, I've been a part of a number of commissions where we said, let's look at it. Somebody wants to argue with me, and I've heard the argument, that marijuana is safer than alcohol. Okay, let's look at it. Let's interview some of these people in our governments, and let's see. But as long as we're doing nothing, we're totally powerless to fight back, to investigate, to study, to answer to the public, the people that elect us. Those are the people we answer to. We don't have any answers. So as the legislature, what we're asking for is give us the tools so that we can at least start down the path of finding answers.
I'd just like to echo that a little bit. 10 to 12 years ago, you remember bath salt was big. Bath salt became prevalent because what I was being told by people who knew bath salt was
Thank you, and I want to thank each one of your officers because I know I sent stuff over to be reviewed prior to bringing it up, so I really appreciate your responses back to me to try to make the bills as strong as they can be. So thank you for everything you do to keep our community safe.
Chairman Hess.
Thank you, Chairman. And I want to thank everybody for being here today, your testimony. And from what I'm hearing, and I appreciate your voices, I speak quite a bit to our district attorney, Michael Brief from Carbon County, and he was explaining the situation with the second-degree murder. And we had a case in Carbon County where a gentleman held his mom and his friends after and killed her. And the fact that that person would be eligible to reappeal after all that was gone through is appalling as a society. What the Supreme Court did and what our Democratic colleagues did on the House floor to that bill. So as I look at that, it kind of sets me back. I share the Human Services with the Republican caucus. I am the most glamorous committee. But we deal a lot with substance use disorder. And I'm really encouraged to see, you spoke earlier about those overdose that's coming down. We did a lot of work in the past. We have a great task force to strengthen those laws. And that's what we want our DAs and our Attorney General to focus on, moving forward. What the Democrats did what the courts did and what the House majority did is set us all back. You're now turning back the time and working on cases that you've already prosecuted and put heinous, people that commit heinous crimes away. Instead of looking forward and working on the next issue, which is always going to be another. It was prescription drugs, and it was heroin, and it was fentanyl. Now it's kratom, it was bath salts. We passed legislation to take care of that. So we got to continue to move forward with xylazine and all the other drugs that are coming at us. And instead of working on these things moving forward, we took a giant step back. We're going to release people that are dangerous to society. And it's disappointing. And certainly you have my support in trying to get these issues resolved. And as we move forward, we have Attorney General Sunday for your work. We passed the SNAP benefit card, the chip reader on the EBT card. That's really going to cut down fraud and abuse. And I want to commend you on the work that you've done as the chairman, like I said, of the Human Service Committee. It's so disappointing when I see people that are fighting so hard to get the basic services. These are the people that can't get out of bed in the morning without assistance. When we see people stealing money from them, that's kind of low. So I appreciate the work you do there. And certainly look forward to working together as we tackle these upcoming issues with the new drug trends that are coming out and the kratom. And I appreciate all the people that brings.
Senator Dush has joined us on live, and I'm going to ask him for squeeze him in for one last question for this panel. Senator Dush.
Thank you very much. I'm a senior individual officer with the office of the prison. First of all, thank you, Sunday. Thank you for the dedicated staff and team efforts and the DAs as well for what they're doing. Trying to come together and working on the human services and benefits. But one of those things that DAOP brought up, I want to is funding. Most of you guys understand that we are definitely underwater with our funding. The Medicaid Medicare fraud, hopefully we can get enough of a bite out of this apple between what the Attorney General is going along with the federal government, so that money that we're shoveling out the door, sending truckloads out the door on the fraud, ends up coming back and we can start using this for the victims of our crime act, the VOCA, as well as our
Luzerne County is profoundly fortunate to have a man determined to fight crime, committed to give victims a voice, and dedicated to collaborating with the administration and local law enforcement to keep Luzerne County safe, regardless of who you are. And District Attorney, you don't have to worry about recruiting me. I'm not a new graduate of law school. I just celebrated my year anniversary of graduating from law school. But in my tenure as the county manager, I would be proud to serve under the leadership of our district attorney and secretary. So my topic today is a little bit different than what you've heard. Part of my responsibility as a county manager is to present a budget and to oversee various divisions and departments. One of our most challenging divisions is our prison. And the increasing age population of the inmates. Our inmates are getting older, they have neurological challenges, many of them may have dementia, along with a lot of physical challenges. And in my statement, I asked why this matters to county government. For county officials, this is not simply a state level policy debate. County correctional facilities, though governed by different population and sentencing structures than state prisons, face the same parallelisms that our state correctional facilities are facing. An aging pretrial and short sentence population with escalating chronic health needs, rising medical contract costs, and a staff who are increasingly called upon to manage geriatric and end-of-life care in a setting never designed for it. Correction officers are trained for security, not hospice care. Medical units built decades ago were not designed for wheelchairs, dialysis, or dementia management. We had one instance where there was a man who the police responded to his residence on many occasions. He had dementia, and he sometimes would leave his home without any clothes on. His wife did not have the ability to care for him at home. The police arrested him because there was a minor child that lived in the neighborhood. They arrested him. He's incarcerated in our prison calls and raises legs. He's sent to the hospital. The hospital is releasing him back to the prison because it's a safe place. Now, those people in the audience and our representatives know that Luzerne County Prison is in a situation where we need a new prison. It is not a safe place for a person who has a broken leg. I get a call from a former Secretary of Aging, so you have to do something about this. So what I did was I brought in a representative from the district attorney's office, a representative from the public defender's office. I also brought in our directors of aging. I brought in our director of mental health, and I brought them around the table and I said, this man does not belong in our prison. The problem was facilities wouldn't take him because of his criminal charges. So I did bring in a representative of the district attorney's office and public defender's office, and I said, you have to get in front of the judge, because if we could lessen his charges, get even if the police get him a lesser charge, we can get him into a facility that he belongs. And our director of mental health was able correctional facility, has constraints. It was designed and built in 1887, and the last renovation was in 1987. It's a multi-story facility with an inefficient layout that dries up minimum staffing requires simply 2 equal safety between floors and housing. A design problem that predates any consideration of aging-specific care. County officials have historically discussed replacing the facility for more than 2 decades. The projected costs and estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars, we kept the idea on the back burner, and hopefully that will change. The physical reality compounds the medical and staffing pressures aging inmates create elsewhere in the state. Correctional Services leadership has identified inmate medical needs as one of the most pressing drivers of the county prison budget, and outside medical treatment is cited as a major factor behind overtime. The result of our structural bind, a 19th century building layout, staffing model already strained by turnover, vacancies, and a population whose off-site medical needs are rising in parallel with the statewide aging trend. Unlike a new construction facility, Water Street, where our prison is located, cannot easily accommodate ADA compliant housing. Ground floor medical units with a kind of internal geriatric care capacity that will reduce the need for costly and staff-intensive outside transport. Until the county either invests in significant facility modernization or the state expands compassionate geriatric release mechanism to reduce the population most likely to need this level of care, Luzerne County will continue absorbing these costs largely through overtime and outside medical spending, rather than the kind of purpose-built infrastructure that would address the problems at its source. What we need to do is to modernize our services. We need a geriatric and medical infrastructure. We need staff training. Correctional officers and medical staff need training specific to dementia, mobility limitation, and end-of-life care. Skills far removed from traditional security training, but increasingly central to the job. We need a re-entry planning tailored to older adults. Individuals released after decades of incarceration face unique barriers, outdated job skills, eroded family networks, and unfamiliarity with technology and benefit system. That standard re-entry program often fails to address. We need cross-agency coordination. Aging in prison policy sits at the intersection of corrections, public health, and human services. County governments that build formal coordination mechanisms between these departments will be better positioned to manage both costs and care. I will quote District Attorney O'Hague again, we need money. However, I am not a county leader who believes that our responsibility is to wait for Harrisburg. We need, as county leaders, to begin to adapt local infrastructure, staff training, and interdepartmental coordination now, which is what Luzerne County is doing as we speak. But it is a shared challenge. We need to understand that the population in our prison is aging and brings with it new and challenging obstacles.
Thank you, Mel. My family has struggled with folks with Alzheimer's. I can only imagine how difficult it is when you stir the fact that there are also prison inmates in that mix. That has to be extraordinarily difficult. Sheriff Harris.
Chairperson, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity today. My name is Jensen Darius, and I'm honored to serve as sheriff of Hazleton County. Although I was recently appointed, I have spent my career serving this department as deputy sheriff, sergeant, lieutenant, and now sheriff. That experience alone has allowed me to see how our office has evolved over the years, the challenges we face moving forward. As sheriff, our responsibilities extend far beyond traditional law enforcement operations. On any given day, I oversee courthouse security, inmate transport, civil process, personnel management, budgeting, policy development, training, and the day-to-day administration of the sheriff's department. My responsibility is to ensure our deputies have the leadership, resources, and support they need to serve the citizens of Luzerne County safely and professionally. One area that has become easier over the years is technology and communication. Advances in technology have improved scheduling, case management, information sharing, and communication within our office. These tools allow us to operate more efficiently and better manage our daily responsibilities. What has gotten harder in our department? While collaboration has improved, the responsibilities placed on sheriff's offices continue to increase. Today's public safety challenges require agencies to be flexible, responsive, and capable of working seamlessly with one another. However, Pennsylvania statutes governing sheriffs have not evolved alongside those responsibilities. Across the Commonwealth, deputy sheriffs often undergo professional training and certification, yet their serving differs significantly depending upon the county where they serve. In Luzerne County, under the authority of District Attorney Santana Doja, our deputies investigate criminal offenses, file criminal complaints, issue traffic and non-traffic citations, and perform many traditional law enforcement functions. Yet, a deputy in another Pennsylvania county with identical training may be prohibited from performing many of those same duties. The difference is not training. The difference is not professionalism. The difference is not experience. The difference is that Pennsylvania law has never clearly established a uniform statewide definition of the duties, authorities of sheriffs and deputy sheriffs. That inconsistency creates unnecessary confusion, duplicates law enforcement resources, and they can delay service to the public. For instance, if we're at a traffic stop and there is a car accident, we can't investigate, so we have to call on local law enforcement agencies to come investigate that. If we do a simple traffic citation for pulling somebody over running red light, we smell the odor of alcohol or marijuana or things, see drug paraphernalia in the car. Again, we can't do anything. We would have to call local law enforcement and agency. God forbid they were trying to investigate a homicide or any major crime. Although they are still crimes, these smaller crimes we could investigate, we wouldn't be able to. We would have to call local or state law enforcement agencies. So we're just asking for clarity. I respectfully urge the General Assembly to establish a clear and consistent statutory framework defining the duties and authority of sheriffs and deputy sheriffs throughout Pennsylvania. Doing so would improve efficiency, eliminate unnecessary duplication of services, strengthen partnerships among law enforcement agencies, and allow nearly 2,000 trained and certified deputy sheriffs to fully utilize the training they have already received. Because I have only been recently appointed sheriff, I have not yet encountered significant challenges unique to the office that I did not experience as a lieutenant overseeing daily operations. However, based on my years of service, conversations with sheriffs, deputy sheriffs from across Pennsylvania, and legal questions that continue to arise statewide, I believe one of the greatest challenges I will face is navigating the inconsistencies in the statutory authority of sheriff offices. As public safety continues to evolve, sheriffs are increasingly expected to work alongside municipal, county, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. Without clear legislative guidance, sheriff office may continue to face uncertainty regarding the scope of their authority, resulting in unnecessary legal challenges, duplication of effort, and missed opportunities to further serve the public. Addressing issues now would allow sheriffs across Pennsylvania to focus less on legal uncertainty and more on protecting the communities we are sworn to serve. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Sheriff, and again, congratulations on your.
Thank you so much.
Chief, here we are in your city.
Yes. Thank you everyone for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here. Again, we should have said one of those introductions.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, real quick. I'm Chief Police here for Hazleton. Some of the themes I wanted to bring up today is Hazleton has been experiencing meaningful changes in crime over the past decade. While some challenges remain, particularly involving drugs and assaults, there is an overall trend which is showing us much more favorable since the 2010s. Our crime trends, property crime has declined overall, as we've seen substantially over the entire nation, thankfully. It is reflecting the statewide pattern as well. Theft remains the most common reported offense, particularly larceny, shoplifting, and theft from motor vehicles in our community. Violent crime is relatively stable. Aggravated assault accounts for the most violent crimes. Homicides remain infrequent compared to a large density in the cities. Hazleton's reported violent crime rate in 2024 was about 233 incidents per 100,000 residents, below the national average reported by open crime. With that, a lot of our violent crime at this time is usually related either to gangs or what they claim to be gangs in our region. Drug-related crime continues to be one of our highest affecting crimes in our community. Like many communities in northeastern Pennsylvania, Hazleton continues to contend with opioid and fentanyl trafficking problem. Drug activity contributes to obviously property crime and violent incidents, but does not account for all the crime in our city. Several years ago, I had asked members of Congress and the state Senate to work with, at the time, Mayor Torrella, in trying to create a highlight task force for our region. We are a corridor for narcotics trafficking. We have the 881 crossover. Everything drug-wise comes through us that goes to New York, New Jersey, and anywhere in New York. Some of the common scams that have been reported in the Hazleton area, I'm going to reiterate. Obviously, law enforcement impersonation scams. People calling saying for the sheriff's department looking for money from individuals. The family emergency grandparent scams, as Attorney General submitted, expanded on. They are prominent in our area. We have a resident who was just scammed out for $70,000 through one of these type of scams. The identity theft and tax refund or fraud is rampant throughout Hazleton and Williamson County. Government benefit and loan fraud, again, expanding on this, is rampant throughout our region. Our crime is not a unique industry that develops. It shifts. Ours comes from neighborhoods where individuals move to and from, and then we have to start looking at those individuals again and investigate crime over in those regions again. Several factors that shape Hazleton's crime patterns. Economic hardship, drug trafficking routes around the eastern Pennsylvania, major deteriorating crime rate and traffic light. Repeat offenders responsible for a very fair portion of our crimes. Most times, again, it starts with our juveniles and we are arrested all throughout the counties. Our evidence-based solutions that have worked so far has been livestock policing, community policing, problem-oriented policing, youth engagement. When I came to office, we brought on a public information officer, which Senator Boycho, Representative Boycho, and Ms. Arnold are very familiar with. Our PIO is always out doing something in our community with the youth, with the adults, even with our senior citizens, and trying to instruct them on the scams and engaging them. What we've been telling our residents to do, we encourage them to walk their vehicles, move their valuables, don't leave your vehicle running, report suspicious activity, as always. Participate in neighborhood crime watches, community meetings, support our local movement initiatives. Overall, the data indicates that Hazleton is safer than it was a decade ago in terms of property crime, but continue to face challenges related to assaults, drug-related offenses. The combination of focused policing, community partnerships, environmental improvements, and prevention programs offer the strongest evidence, and we continue to follow those in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. I know, in discussing this with Representative Watrow and the mayor on a regular basis, I especially appreciated your focus on those root causes, the blighted properties, the abandoned properties. You don't have nearly as many in this city as in other portions of the districts that we represent, but I know it's still a concern, and it's not just uncomfortable to look at, it is a potential cause of crime.
weeks ago, or at the beginning of summer, I was invited for an Alzheimer's walk. And I had Dr. Reed, really, Dr. Something was there. And the Alzheimer's Association spoke about House Bill 2435, which, you know, I was going back and forth on, but we still here today on that bill. The question I have is, moving past that, I want to talk about homeless in Luzerne County. Is there a homeless issue in Luzerne County?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, as soon as I'm finished here, I believe, there's an encampment on one of the railroads in Missouri. I'm going to walk the railroad and visit the encampment. There is a serious problem with homelessness, and it was brought to my attention when the mayor of Wilkes-Barre made an announcement that he would not open blue for the winter. And much to my staff's surprise, it happened at a meeting, I said that the county can do it, and we will have the county-wide local blue. There are multiple encampments in Wilkes-Barre, in here in Hazleton. Our code blue will be countywide. We're working with providers to have not only shelters in place, but to make sure that there's water available, there's food available, and security. I think last year at one of the shelters there were crimes being committed, so we will have appropriate law enforcement there to make sure that is taken care of. We will also have a separate shelter for families if there are children. We don't want children in the general population, so we'll have a specific shelter in place if a family may need it. We discussed this yesterday. There was a shelter, a day shelter, Keystone Mission in Wilkes-Barre, and address some of the needs in Wilkes-Barre. A lot of those members who went to the Keystone Mission were from out of state, which means that they can't receive a lot of the services that residents would receive. So it's really a mixed bag problem. I certainly I don't believe that I'm smart enough to solve the homeless issue, but what we're going to try to do is cast the net wide enough to bring in individuals who want the services. I know that Volunteers of America goes into the encampments and works with the individuals who are there. We can't ignoring the issue is a decision that can be made, but it's not the right one. So we definitely need to look at it. I believe from a county perspective. So we are definitely with this code blue, we're looking at that issue more in depth. But it is a significant problem here in Missouri.
Thank you. That was my question. My next follow-up question was, is there anything I appreciate?
Yeah, well, I volunteered, I don't wanna say it's not a county, issue that is in our charter under my purview, but, that's not the way it was raised. And, I firmly believe that if the county consists municipalities, that is our duty to do that, and, as long as it's coming in here, I can do it.
Sheriff, congratulations.
Thank you.
Chief, I have a question for you. Would a 5-year limitation period for drug delivery resulting in death be much better for cases rather than a The reason I'm gonna ask is, I'm gonna tell you a little story. Last year, a constituent of mine, a big constituent of yours, had a son that passed away by this very such thing, which compelled me to go ahead and draft up some legislation. I believe there's one in the Senate as well. Thank you. And I just wanna know, do you believe moving that limitation from 2 years to 5 years, would that give you more time, or do you think that's not a good idea to move that statute of limitation? Because my heart broke for this woman who came and spoke to me, hearing the story of how she found her son.
My honest thought would be that any increase in time to investigate it would be well worth it. I believe that any death resulting from that should be actually investigated almost as thoroughly and as long as any homicide investigation would pursue. Meaning that it should be left open to be investigated for no limitation whatsoever.
That's good news. And unfortunately, my bill wasn't being brought up in committee and amended to, once again, blowing my mind, to do if there was a trade made, for anything, for an IOU, that would, that would be on the table, and, you could not pick someone for that. So, there was agreement just to pull the whole bill, just 2 years. But I hope this is the fight that I'm going to continue to have, once again, to help our victims. Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for all being here today. And as stated earlier, I represent Carbon County, just down the road a little bit. God's country, I call it. But you touched a little bit on the homeless, and this is something that we see in a lot of the issues that in larger counties like Luzerne, we also have in smaller counties, rural counties like Carbon County. And one of the things that we're seeing with these, from tent cities to these pop-up locations, a lot of times, I think the closures of state hospitals put a lot of these folks out on the street. Many of these individuals, we know they already receive public benefits, SSI, they have access to Medicaid, they have access to treatment, mental health and addiction, and substance use disorder treatment, but they're kind of refusing it. Sometimes it's an issue, they've been in prison. I know you have a Georgia reentry program they have, and I thought it was a really good program. And I'm just, as lawmakers, I mean, people come to me and they, a lot of them like the bike trail stuff, which seems to be popping up and, bothering, and actually harassing people that are using the trails. So what, I guess I'm looking for some more feedback from you and from the public. I don't know if there's a state law we can pass, but obviously, people that live in those conditions, there's a lot of overdoses, there's a lot of human trafficking, a lot of other issues that surround those and sanitary issues. We already have homeless shelters with, room for these folks to go into, but they're just flat refusing. Is there something we need to do as a state? How do we get these folks to be more responsible?
I wish I could answer all those questions. First of all, we have our longest border in Luzerne County is with Carbon County. So I look forward to doing a lot of work with Carbon County. I think we can be partners in a lot of different areas. What happens, I believe, is that there is a certain group of individuals who are homeless who do not want to go into shelters. Shelters have rules, as they should. And because individuals have a lot of these compound problems, they have drug addiction, they have mental health, they have physical challenges. And even though we do have providers that go into the encampments to try to assist them, they don't want to go into the shelters because of the rules, because they don't want their belongings to be stolen by other individuals. So it's a really complex issue. were people in my life, that, but for them, you know, but for the grace of God go I. There are also individuals who just get caught up in hard times. They lose their job, they lose their family, they want to get better, but the challenges are too great. But that doesn't mean we need to turn our eye on the situation. I'm not sure there is something that, as I mentioned briefly in my statement, I'm not sure there's so much that the state can do, other than maybe, provide, financial support, not only to county, but providers, that, provide services, that the county residents need. Each county is different, each municipality is different, the homeless accountant, that is here, we can't bring the homeless individuals from Hazleton to Wilkes-Barre because they don't trust going up to Wilkes-Barre. Obviously, it's the same thing with Wilkes-Barre as we have in Hazleton, because we would get bus transport to them in the winter, right? We can do that. That's why we're going to work with, local providers here to provide shelters, when, the temperatures drop. So it really is a combination, I think it's a combination of getting the providers the right services, instead of having silos of mental health, and, drug addiction, unifying them. It's the same thing what we're experiencing in the prison. There's so many challenges, individuals have so many challenges that it crosses over a lot of the agencies. And, we need to have some, better, collaboration with those agencies. And, we have to start looking at it. And as I said, we're gonna cast the net as wide as we possibly can and get as many people to services and into shelters and, into situations where, you know, they can maybe get jobs and get, stable housing. So it's a lot of different, problems that we have to tackle, but I think that, we have to start doing it because it, you know, I'm a firm believer in, economic growth, in Luzerne County. I want Luzerne County to thrive. I want them to stay here and not go up 81 or go down 81, no offense. I want them to stay here, but it's hard to, convince developers to come here if we have a growing, population. That's another reason, but it's ultimately for me, it's the humanity, of it. That we have to make sure that, individuals are at least in the opportunity.
Thank you. I think everybody feels that way when we get the opportunity, but we also need to find programs that they're going to fit into because I think there's a lot of programs out there. I think diversionary course can really encourage some of these individuals if they get caught up in that system to get into the treatment that they need. I think that's one tool, but not the only tool. But this is an issue that's been across the country. How do you deal with it anyway? Because I don't think many people live in that situation only to die and overdose or to be abused in facilities like that. It is any more humane than some of the other alternatives. So thank you.
touched on something that's pretty near and dear to me, but like Representative Heffley, I have witnessed individuals myself at the centers that refuse to go in. So if I was dropping supplies on cots and pillows that they needed in the homeless shelter, they would come and ask me for a pillow. When we would invite them in, they said, no, they have nothing to do going inside the facility or getting food or anything like that. I just wanted to go. So naturally, we gave them a go. But I think it's a fine line. And I think, you know, in what you're looking at, I'd like to talk about this more and see if we can figure it out. I think we need to, I have one organization telling me that they think anybody that wants to live on the street is suffering from some type of mental health. So that he got assistance in order to get through that. So I'd like to see, we've got so many great organizations that I've met with the last year and a half inside this county. If we can bring them together to try to work on a solution to make it better for everybody, I think that's a really good place to be. I also have different things that are taking place inside our county that I think, by working together with women like to and get stuff done, we actually were very successful in bringing the trades into speaking at an addiction center to show them that there is a path forward after they come out of the addiction center. So the hope is, I was actually out at SCI Dallas speaking to the board, and I'd like to talk about this a lot because I'm very proud of it and the work that they're doing out there. They started a welding program, and the inmates would leave with a welding certificate when they got to the point where they would leave. I asked what the reincarceration rate was on those individuals. It's 0. So they were able to come out of the state correctional facility, with a welding degree, and get a job and be able to sustain themselves. So I think when we're looking at solutions for the homeless here, we need to show them the path forward, that they can succeed and they can stand up. But it's also going to take some want on their part. It's also they're going to have to want to make their lives better. So I look forward to working with my colleagues and everybody here to get that done. And congratulations, Sheriff. It's great to see.
Thank you. Just, I want to know that when we made the announcement that the county was going to take over the co-group, the providers, we got calls the next day from many of the providers, and our division of Indian Services, Megan Stone, is coordinating, and you know, if someone has a bad experience at a shelter, I wouldn't want to go back into the shelter, right? We have bad experiences at restaurants and hotels, we don't go back there, right? So, hopefully we bring people and they can tell other people that, you know, you go to the shelters and you're not, your things aren't going to be solved. You're not going to be assaulted. So if we give them a different model, it might work. And we're not going to do it overnight. We're not going to do this overnight. We have to take the time and be dedicated to do it. But it's a dialogue. And programs like the one that they have at SCI Dallas, and give people a skill and give them something to be proud of. I always talk about, you know, the warehouses, people put the warehouses down, right? You know, there are challenges with the warehouses, right? There are cons to have warehouses everywhere, but you know what? We're giving people jobs. My grandfather was a coal miner, and every Sunday he dressed up in his finest clothes to go to church and to dinner with his family, and he was a proud man. He worked hard. We're giving people something to be proud of. Like, it bothers me when people put warehouses down on people who work there, because having a job gives people pride, and it's a beginning, and it's the same thing with skills.
Thank you to our entire second panel. We'll turn now to our final panel. Daniel Gentile is the Chief of Police for the Hazleton Area School District. Dr. Lisa Kugler is here representing Treason Atlas, and Rosanna Gabriel representing the Hazleton Integration Project. you're up first.
Thank you.
Make sure the green button is on.
Good morning. Chairman Arnold, Chairman Rao, Representative Wacho, members of the Senate Majority Policy Committee, and House Republican Policy Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today regarding crime trends, school safety and strategies to protect students and staff at Hazleton Public Schools. My name is Daniel Gentile. I serve as the Chief of Police and Director of Security for the Hazleton Area School District. Every day, our officers and security personnel are entrusted with protecting thousands of students, educators, and visitors across multiple school buildings. When we discuss crime, we often focus on incidents after they occur. In schools, however, our greatest success comes from prevention. Every fight that does not happen, every weapon that never enters a school, and every student who receives intervention before turning to violence represents a victory for public safety. Today's challenges extend beyond the school walls. We're seeing the effects of community violence, social media conflicts, mental health concerns, substance abuse, and emerging threats carried into educational environments. Students do not leave these issues at the door when they arrive at school. As a result, school safety and community safety are inseparable. I am pleased to report that over the past 3 years, the district has experienced a significant decrease in violent incidents occurring on school property. Through a combination of proactive policing, enhanced security practices, threat assessment procedures, mental health intervention, and strong partnerships with local law enforcement, we've reduced serious assaults, fights resulting in injury, weapons-related incidents, and other violent behaviors that negatively impact the learning environment. This decline did not occur by accident. It is the result of a coordinated strategy that focuses on prevention rather than reaction. First, we have strengthened our threat assessment process. Students today often communicate concerns, grievances, and even threats through social media and electronic communications long before an act of violence occurs. By training staff members to recognize warning signs and establish clear reporting mechanisms, we're able to intervene before a situation escalates. Second, we have expanded collaboration between school personnel, law enforcement, behavioral health professionals, and families. Many of these challenges we face are not simply criminal justice issues. They involve trauma, mental health concerns, substance abuse, family instability, and online influences that affect student behavior. Addressing these factors early helps prevent the future criminal activities while keeping young people connected to school and community supports. Third, we have invested in physical security measures, including access control systems, visitor management procedures, surveillance technology, emergency communications, and specialized school police security training. These measures create a safer learning environment while allowing our staff to focus on education. While these efforts have produced positive results, significant challenges remain. One of the fastest growing concerns we face is the impact of social media and technology on school safety. Conflicts that once ended when students left school now continue 24 hours a day through online platforms. Threats, harassment, intimidation, and the rapid spread of misinformation can quickly create fear and disruption here in the school community. We are also seeing increased demands related to behavioral and mental health crises. School police officers today are expected to serve not only as law enforcement personnel, but as crisis responders, mediators, and partners in intervention efforts. The complexity of these situations require ongoing training and resources. As lawmakers consider ways to further improve school safety across Pennsylvania, I respectfully offer several recommendations for legislative consideration. First, continue and expand dedicated funding for school security personnel and technology. Many districts face financial constraints that it makes it difficult to maintain modern security infrastructure, conduct regular training, and and employ qualified school police officers. Stable to recurring funding would allow districts to plan for long-term safety improvements rather than relying on intermittent grant opportunities. Second, increase support for school-based mental health services. The most effective crime prevention strategy is often early intervention. Additional funding for counselors, social workers, psychologists, and behavioral health programs can help identify and address issues long before they develop into disciplinary or criminal matters. Third, establish additional grant opportunities for threat assessment training and behavioral threat programs. Standardized training across Pennsylvania will help schools identify risks consistently and share best practices. Fourth, strengthening information sharing capabilities among schools, law enforcement agencies, and authorized mental health providers while maintaining appropriate privacy protection. Timely communication is often the difference between prevention and response. Fifth, provide additional resources for combating cyber threats, online harassment, and social media facilitating violence. Schools need access to training, technology, and investigative support to address conduct that increasingly originates online, but impacts safety inside school buildings. Finally, I encourage continued support for school police officers programs throughout the Commonwealth. These officers serve as a critical bridge between education and public safety, building positive relationships with students while providing professional law enforcement services when needed. Members of the communities, every student deserves to learn in a safe environment. Every teacher deserves to work in a secure classroom. While no security strategy can eliminate every risk, we've demonstrated that strong partnerships, early intervention, and targeted investments can reduce violence and improve outcomes for our young people. The progress we have seen over the past 3 years should encourage us. Violent incidents have declined, relationships between school and law enforcement have strengthened, and prevention efforts are producing measurable results. With continued legislative support, we can build upon that success in creating safer schools throughout Pennsylvania. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today. I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thanks, Chief. When this committee did a series of hearings just on school safety several years ago, we learned very quickly it was a lot more complicated than just locking the doors. And you made that very clear. Dr. Goodwin.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Dr. Lisa Kugler, and I am a licensed psychologist and a lifelong resident of Westmoreland County here in the Commonwealth. I have spent over the past 30 years involved in the behavioral health system. I am here today in my professional capacity as the Senior Vice President of Treatment Atlas at Shatterford, a national nonprofit that is dedicated to creating a world where addiction never defines or ends alike. We work together to transform systems, support families, and end stigma forever. I am also here as a mother. My son lives with a serious mental illness and has had experienced involvement with the criminal justice system. Because of this experience, I have seen firsthand both the challenges that individuals and families face and the opportunities we have as policies, providers, and communities to do better. At any given time, approximately 250,000 Pennsylvanians are involved in the criminal justice system, whether incarcerated, on probation, or on parole. It is estimated that between 60 and 80% of those individuals are living with a substance use disorder, a mental health condition, or a co-occurring disorder. Just to put that in perspective, as many as 200,000 Pennsylvanians, roughly 1 in every 65 residents of our Commonwealth, are simultaneously involved in the criminal justice system while managing a behavioral health condition. As a result, by default, one of the largest systems that can impact and improve our mental health system and substance use outcomes in in Pennsylvania is the criminal justice system. Today, I would briefly like to address 2 points around this continuum. The first being prevention, so individuals are less likely to engage in behaviors that would activate the criminal justice system, and re-entry after completion of a sentence. First, prevention. Every day, new psychoactive substances become more readily available to consumer. Adolescents are particularly vulnerable to these substances because of the regions of the brain for impulse control, decision-making, and evaluating long-term consequences that are still developing. At the same time, the adolescent brain is highly responsive to the reward systems, making young people especially susceptible to the reinforcing effects of psychoactive substances. Simply put, youth are at a greater risk, not because they make poor choices, but because their developing brains process risk and reward differently than adults. Throughout my career, I have worked with thousands of individuals impacted by addiction. Not one of them has ever told me that their childhood dream was to grow up and develop a substance use disorder. Because of this, we must do everything possible to prevent addiction before it starts. Pennsylvania should continue to examine policies that limit youth access to psychoactive substances and establish meaningful consequences for those who knowingly market, sell, or provide these products to minors. Today, individuals can purchase several psychoactive substances outside of traditional pharmacies or regulated cannabis dispensaries, including kratom, concentrated 7-OH products, and nitrous. These products are often sold through retail channels such as gas stations with very limited oversight, creating legitimate concerns regarding potency, product transparency, and addiction risk. We should be asking ourselves whether products with these risks should be as accessible to young people as they currently are. The second issue I would like to address is re-entry after serving a sentence. Something the Representative Hugh just mentioned about the 0% recidivism, that's about hope and belief in oneself. For individuals returning to the community after involvement with the criminal justice system, recovery is often only the beginning of this journey. These individuals face significant barriers to employment, education, housing, and community integration. Too often they are judged by not who they are, but the worst moment of their lives. I have witnessed personally through my son's journey. Although the issues focused on mental health instead of substance use, the process would have been the same. My son was required to provide proof of completion from an intensive outpatient program, documentation from aftercare services, letters from both his psychiatrist and therapist and his probation officer to try and secure employment. In one instance, despite providing all of this documentation and documenting more than 3 years of sustained remission and stability, he was denied an opportunity to drive or DoorDash. This is unconscionable. Imagine having to relive and explain the most difficult chapter of your life during every job interview, every housing application, and every opportunity to move forward. Imagine being repeatedly asked to prove that you are worthy of that second chance. When repeated, this process becomes discouraging, demoralizing, traumatizing, and eventually an individual can lose hope in the system, and most importantly, belief in themselves. Recovery thrives when people are given an opportunity to rebuild their lives. Individuals re-entering society need access to treatment, stable housing, educational opportunities, meaningful employment, and communities that understand behavioral health conditions are medical conditions, not mental families. When we provide
Thank you. Rosanna Gabriel from the Hazleton Integration Project, and Rosanna, also congratulations on your recent promotion.
Good morning, good evening, Senator Hazleton and the committee. Gracias por escuchar. Thank you to my panelists next to me for the addressing very well, presenting some of the points I have here. Because today I really want to talk about prevention and resources available for people. I work for a Hazleton Protection Project that is a non-profit organization located in the middle of in a neighborhood. Thank you. In a neighborhood with low income families, and in a neighborhood where you almost never see crime happen. We are working with children, families in general, but children from different ages, from teenagers from different ages, to offering educational opportunity, athletic leadership, family support. And based on the data available in Hazleton, because I want to talk about Hazleton specifically, the overall crime, somebody mentioned, that is low than the average in the county. But we have something. The perception outside Hazleton is not good. So additional to everything, we need to talk about promoting our activities at Hazleton, promoting our economic success, promoting the opportunity for the police to have more activity with the community. I know that we need more police to addressing things, but we need to continue the effort to bring more people to the police and to bring more bilingual people. Hazleton has experienced significant growth over the past decade. Our population increased, new businesses have opened, and we have growing number of children and young people. Growth create opportunities, at the same time require continued investment in public safety. We know that the police here is doing a good job, and the investment in equipment help the improvement and the reduce of crime. From our experience working with families every day, one of the best ways that we think to prevent crime is to invest in new people before becoming involved in risky behavior. Research shows that poverty, family instability, will have a lot of that. Why? I can explain it for immigrant people, because that is something bigger than us. The immigrant law sometimes doesn't allow that you bring your entire family, children, you come with grandparents,
historical reference. As we discuss resources for buildings, we also like to mention an important challenge here. We are fortunate to have excellent building service organization in Utah. Hazleton is different because our people need to go to other cities in order to pass services. One example is, for example, the local hospital had a program, violence prevention. When they have domestic violence and then a woman needs a shelter, maybe the shelter here at school. When the woman needs a shelter for the family, we don't have that. When the woman needs services, they need to go to Windsor for domestic violence or other services. But what happened with transportation? We had a lot of people now, their own transportation they are missing. I encourage to continue exploring ways to expand local assets for building services, strengthen bilingual support, and improve transportation options so that no parent is unable to receive the service because lack of one of those services, that lack of language or lack of transportation. At the same time, I'm encouraged to continue improving the planning for young people. We had a panel here that depends on the Lucerne County District Attorney Office, but from my knowledge, the only bilingual person is only one. When that person is not present, the family doesn't have the opportunity to receive translation in this panel. Additional than that, we need to send more persons and young people to that panel instead of sending in front of the judge. When you send a young people in front of the judge immediately, that the reaction can be different. You can react, I'm gonna be a bad person now because maybe sometimes the crime that or the mistake that young people commit is because they lack of knowledge or because they lack of knowledge. Every investment we make in education, mental health, recreation, leadership development, and family support is also an investment in the public sector. By giving our children hope, opportunities, positive role models, and a strong sense of belonging, we are helping build a safer Hazleton, not only for today, but for the future generation. So thank you for listening to my humble opinion. Thank you so much.
Thanks about that. I learned a long time ago as a scout leader and then as a parent, the busier I kept them, the less trouble they got into. We have two questions to start off with. Senator Dush, followed by Senator Baker. Senator Dush.
I want to congratulate both chairs for the breadth of this hearing because the scope of what is going on in the criminal justice system and reentry programs, all of that, it's so broad and it's so there's a whole lot of facets to it. But I appreciate this hearing actually lets people get a kind of an example of how broad it is and the scope of what we have to deal with. I want to just want to say we had Dr. Anna Santongo from Penn State on regarding human trafficking. Was supposed to testify today, but apparently she's got a brand new baby, so congratulations to her. But I do want to encourage members to read her written testimony on the written testimony and behind her testifying language is provided. Understanding human trafficking, there's a nice section there. But I want people to understand something. Just like the rest of what we discussed today, that is a very broad situation. And from the education aspect of what we need to be doing for doctors, teachers, law enforcement, judges, parents, that all need to hear from the survivors. You can't undo these stories once you've heard them, but any of us who are in responsible positions, we need to hear them. And I'll give you one example. I was sitting down at Stop Juvenile Sex Trafficking Conference, 1,100 people that are working in this space down in DC. would require an immediate notification of law enforcement from the sex trafficking hotline. Again, the reaction was immediate. It was visceral. I wouldn't call it. Was it that was a universal consensus? It was immediate, and there was a lot of anger there. We spend so much time trying to undo things that we've done by not being informed, and we need to make sure that we take the time with our law enforcement practitioners, and I gotta congratulate the NEPA Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, because you guys are doing remarkable work up there. We've been around to 10 different regions in Pennsylvania, gathering information for a study on the situation here for the Commonwealth as a whole. You guys are standouts, and I appreciate the work, how everybody's collaborating across all disciplines. And of course, there's always room for improvement everywhere, but I just wanted to thank all of you. And again, please take a look at the written testimony that was provided by Dr. Santongo, and we've got huge amount of stuff here that anybody that wants to get involved with the bipartisan, bicameral, anti-human trafficking task force, please, I encourage you to become members. You'll get to hear some stories that you wish you didn't have to hear, but in this job we have to hear. So thank you again to both chairs from what we're hearing about releases from the former corrections officer as well as in working administration, Department of Corrections. And as a former law enforcement, this is the most broad-reaching hearing I've heard on the scope of what we're facing in Pennsylvania so far. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I have a question for you. The General Assembly has been working diligently to update our laws and regulations related to deep fakes, digital impersonations. What are you seeing in the Hazleton School District related to the use of technology in school or outside of school between students? And is that something you think the General Assembly should continue to address? Is it a growing issue as we're hearing in other parts of the state?
I believe it is. We saw a lot of that towards the end of last school year, where kids were using AI and different technology to airdrops for different things. They should be able to interact with different children. It happens at home, follows us in school, so that is something we need to do. We know our technology department in our district is very diligent in putting filters, trying to eliminate many of that actions that are going on, but it is something we should follow up, continue to grow with.
I appreciate that. We've been, Senator Tracy Pennycook, who chairs our Communications and Technology Committee, has really been at the forefront working to address that and holding accountable when he uses that technology inappropriately. So we'll continue to stay connected, and if you have any recommendations for us, we would certainly appreciate that. Dr. Kugler, thank you for coming today as mom and sharing your personal insights. We have, as chair of the Judiciary Committee over the last many years, have been working to streamline justice reinvestment, for putting resources in to help with immigration, looking at clean slate, giving people a second chance, probation review conferences, which are part of the process to help if we don't have to concentrate keeping people on probation any longer than they need to, they now have the ability to do that. So I appreciate your perspective. It is true that the Department of Corrections is one of the largest mental health funders, and if you look at the bottom line in corrections, that's a key piece of it. But whatever we can do to help people as they reintegrate back, they're going to become our neighbors, they're going to be part of our community, and your perspective, I just greatly appreciated you coming today as well. Thank you.
Representative Walker.
Thank you, Chairman. Two statements I have. Roseanne, I appreciate you very much and learn a lot from you, and I enjoy working with you, so thank you for your knowledge and the resources you provide. Sarah and I are thank you. Chief, quick comment I just have. Hazleton area is one of the fastest growing school districts in the Commonwealth. Well over 13,000 students, maybe over 14,000 right now, and I'm sure that number keeps on climbing. One thing I gotta say, and I'm very sincere when I say this, my daughter just graduated in June of this past year, and there was not one day that I ever feared for her safety in that high school. So thank you very much for keeping our students and our staff back in the city. Thank you. Just want to roll into some closing remarks, Senator, Chairman, is that okay? Okay. Thank you to Chairman Argle, Chairman Rowe, and members, and each of today's testifiers for helping us build a clearer record today. Today's testimony made one point especially clear. Progress and changing threats can exist at the same time. Our task is to distinguish what requires legislation from what requires recurrent funding, training, data, and better coordination under current law. I will continue working with our testifiers and our colleagues to turn this record into practical, careful, drawn next steps moving forward. Chairman Rowe, Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Watchell, for hosting us. I want to thank all of today's testifiers. We've had three fantastic panels. All of your testimony has really given us a much clearer understanding of the challenges facing Pennsylvania communities as well as the strategies that are working and making a difference. Today's hearing is definitely part of a broader, overarching conversation that the House Public and Policy Committee will be continuing in weeks ahead. This week on Thursday, we will convene in Allegheny County to discuss the second-degree murder sentencing issue that was discussed quite a bit in the first panel. And then on August 19th, we'll be traveling to Reading to examine the recruitment and retention challenges facing law enforcement agencies. And then we're also going to be holding additional hearings on the pressures facing Pennsylvania's emergency medical services system. Each of these issues may be distinct, but they are all part of our shared responsibility to keep Pennsylvania's communities safe and support those who keep us safe. So I want to thank once again Chairman Argall for putting this together, Representative Watcher for hosting us. I want to thank all of the members who have joined us online and in person. I want to thank Director Perez from the Senator McCormick's office for being here as well. Thank everyone, including the staff, who made this hearing happen, because nothing happens without our team that makes it happen. So thank you very much, Chairman. I'll turn back to you.
Thank you. We're a half hour late, which in Harrisburg time is known as ahead of schedule. Okay, so thanks to all who participated. Chairman Rowe, thank you for working with us as a partner. Dane, thank you. We literally would not have been here in Hazleton without you, Representative Bottrell. To all of our testifiers, I should note that we appreciate it. The Senate part of this committee will reconvene on Friday in Shenandoah to look at rising electric costs. With that, Chairman Rowe, want to adjourn us together, see how we do this? We're done.